Hello, everyone. Welcome to unit number 2. This unit is about speech production. By the end of this unit, you'll be able to describe speech production from both a physiological point of view and also an anatomical point of view. That means that you will be able to identify and describe the different organs and cavities that take part in this process. So let's start by checking the different contents in this unit. We will start by discussing two important terms. They are anatomy and physiology. Then we will delve into all three systems of speech organs and we will study why they are called systems. Then we will study each one of the systems, which are the articulatory system, the phonatory system, and the respiratory system. In all three cases, we will study the different components, that means the different organs that constitute the systems, and also their functions, both their primary function and the secondary function, which is related to speech production. As we said, there are two terms which are very important in this unit because we will use them whenever we describe each one of the systems of speech organs, and we need to understand their difference. They are anatomy and physiology. Anatomy describes structure. It means that it refers to the body parts that take part in speech productions, the different organs, the different articulators, the different cavities. Then physiology describes the function that they perform. It refers to how those body parts work together with a purpose. This means that if we describe a system from the anatomical point of view, we will mention and describe the different components that constitute the system. But if we describe a system from its physiological point of view, we will speak about its functions. Here we need to know that none of the organs that have a role in speech production are exclusively used for speaking. This means that they serve primarily biological functions and that the role in articulation and in speech production is secondary. In the previous unit, we defined the word system as a group of elements working together with a common purpose. Well, in this case, in this unit, we will refer to a group of organs and cavities and articulators that constitute three different systems and which have specific functions. At the same time, however, these three systems work as subsystems of a larger unit, a larger system, which is the human body. So let's see the three systems of speech organs, and they are the articulatory system, the phonatory system, and the respiratory system. We will start describing them from bottom to top. The first system we're going to describe is the respiratory system. So let's start describing it from a physiological point of view. The primary function of this system is that of helping us breathe. That means to provide oxygen to our bodies and remove carbon dioxide from the blood. In relation to speech production, the main function of this system is that of providing the airstream or the flow of air that we need to produce sounds. This airstream that we have just mentioned can be ingressive or egressive. Ingressive is the one that comes into our bodies, and egressive the one that goes out of our bodies. At the same time, egressive airstream can be pulmonic or glottalic. It is pulmonic when it originates in the lungs and glottalic when it originates in the glottis. In English, we use egressive pulmonic airstream. This means that we use the air that originates in our lungs and escapes to the outside through our mouth or nose. Now let's describe the respiratory system from its anatomical point of view. This system is composed of the rib cage, which is a bony structure that encloses and protects the lungs. The intercostal muscles, which are muscles that are located between the ribs. The diaphragm, which is a large muscle located at the base of the rib cage. The lungs, which are two sponge-like organs. The bronchial tubes, which are airways that extend from the trachea to the lungs. And finally, the trachea, which is a windpipe that extends from the throat to the lungs. So now that we mentioned all these organs, let's see how they interact in two important processes, inhalation and exhalation. During inhalation, the intercostal muscles and the rib cage lift, and the diaphragm lowers to expand lung volume. Then the air enters through the mouth and into the lungs. During exhalation, the intercostal muscles, the rib cage, and diaphragm work together to generate pressure, reduce lung volume, and then expel the air. We're moving to a different system, the phonatory system. So let's start by describing its functions. The primary function is to prevent food and drink from falling into the trachea and the lungs, and in that way to protect us from choking and suffocation. The main function, however, the one in relation to speech production, is to produce the voice, to produce phonation, with the help of the aggressive airstream that comes from the lungs. Regarding the structure of the phonatory system, it includes the vocal cords or vocal folds, which are two muscles covered by several layers of fibrous tissue that is located in the larynx, and the larynx itself, which is a box-like structure that is formed by a series of cartilages. Since it has this box-like structure, it is also called the voice box. Here's some important information about the vocal cords or vocal folds. They open and close to create sound when we speak. This opening and closing is very rapid, and this is what we call vibration. They act as a protective barrier, closing to prevent food and liquid from entering the trachea and lungs. They also allow us to hold our breath by sealing the trachea. The space between the vocal folds is called glottis. Now I'll show you a very short video in which you will see the vocal cords in action.
Whenever you're ready. Now high pitch. Low pitch. Middle pitch, very soft. Good, a little louder. Louder still. And again now. Good, now say he. Again. And a nice loud he. And again. Once more. Now try a real high pitch. Now give me a singing. At a low pitch and then sing up. Okay, can you go any further? Okay, good. And now high to low.
This video you've just seen is a real-time endoscopic footage showing the vocal cords inside the larynx. It shows the vocal cords opening and closing, that's to say, vibrating, and you can see how these movements affect the pitch and the quality of a person's voice. It is important to mention that not all speech sounds are produced with vocal fold vibration. According to voicing, sounds can be voiced or voiceless. Voiced sounds are those sounds that are produced with vibration of the vocal folds, such as vowel sounds or some consonant sounds. Voiceless sounds are those that are produced without vibration of the vocal folds. In this case, they remain separated from each other so that the air escapes through them. This is a graphic taken from your study material, your booklet. So in the right on the right side, you see that in the production of voiceless sounds, the vocal cords remain separated, while in the production of voiced sounds, they vibrate. Voiceless sounds can also be called unvoiced. Both terms are valid. If you want to know whether a sound is voiced or voiceless, you can check by placing your hand on your throat, articulate the sound, and check whether there is vibration or not. If there is vibration, you will feel it. Try this by producing a vowel sound, for example. E. Touch your throat and you will feel the vibration there. So far, we have described one constituent of the phonatory system, the vocal folds. Now, let's see the structure of the larynx, which is the organ that contains the vocal folds, and it's located above the trachea. The larynx is made up of a series of cartilages that you can see in the image. The cricoid cartilage, which functions as the top ring of the trachea and forms the base of the larynx. The thyroid cartilage, which is like two flat plates that can be seen and felt as the Adam's apple, and it is a shield for the vocal folds. And the arytenoid cartilages, they sit on the cricoid cartilage. They are movable. They have movable joints that allow them to control the tension of the vocal folds. Let's move to a different system, the articulatory system. As we know, the primary function in this system is related to feeding, is that of chewing food, to break down food, drinking, filtering air, swallowing, while the main function in relation to speech production is that of articulating sounds. How do we articulate sounds? By changing or modulating or amplifying those sound waves that were produced in the larynx. From an anatomical point of view, the articulatory system consists of cavities and articulators. Cavities are three: the pharyngeal cavity or the pharynx, the oral cavity, and the nasal cavity. Cavities act as resonating chambers and they amplify or modify the buzz that was produced by the vocal folds or the vocal cords. And some articulators that can be active or passive. When we say active, we mean capable of movement, and passive are those that are incapable of movement. Going back to the cavities, let's explain in a simple way what each of them are. The pharyngeal cavity makes reference to the throat. It extends from the larynx to the mouth and nose. The oral cavity is the mouth itself, and its shape may vary greatly from a speaker to another speaker. And the nasal cavity includes the nose and also the hollow space behind the nose. Now we can move to the articulators, the ones that are active and the ones that are passive. The first active articulators we will describe are the lips. Lips are two fleshy folds richly supplied with muscles. They can block, allow, or reduce the airflow that comes from the lungs. And they can assume different positions. They can be rounded, spread, or neutral. Here's an image that shows the articulation of some vowel sounds and the positions that the lips adopt in each one of the cases. In the case of oo, lips are rounded. In the case of e, you smile more, you spread your lips. And in the case of the articulation of ah, as in ka, lips are neutral. You will see this in a deeper way in unit number 3, when you start describing vowel sounds in detail. Another active articulator is the tongue. The tongue is a complex, flexible organ which is made almost entirely of muscle, and it is the most important active articulator because it intervenes in the production of almost all of the speech sounds. For descriptive purposes, it's divided into different sections: the tip, the blade, the front, the back, and the root. You can observe them in these graphics, which are taken from your studying material. Another important articulator is the soft palate or velum, which is muscular tissue that is at the back of the palate, and it is movable and it is active because it can be lowered or raised. When it is raised, the air escapes through the mouth. So this is the case of oral sounds. Oral sounds are those sounds in the production of which the air escapes through the mouth. But what happens when the soft palate is lowered? In this case, the air escapes through the nose, producing nasal sounds. Now I'm going to name another articulator that is not very important, but it is considered an active articulator because it's capable of movement, and it is the mandible or lower jaw. It is a U-shaped structure, and its movement can influence the quality of the sounds that we produce. So, what about the passive articulators? Let's remember that passive articulators are those articulators that are incapable of movement. So, we will mention two: the teeth, that would be the upper teeth and the lower teeth, and then the palate. The palate is a bony structure that forms the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth is what separates the nasal cavity from the oral cavity. And its parts are two: the alveolar ridge, which is the rigid structure behind our teeth. This structure supports your teeth. And then behind it, the hard palate. Let's look at this image, which is present in your study material. And here you will find a section or an organ that we have not mentioned, and it is the uvula. The uvula, which you can see if you open your mouth and you look at the mirror, is a fleshy piece of tissue that hangs down at the back of your soft palate. Um, but in English, it doesn't have an important role. I mean, it doesn't have a role in the articulation of sounds, because we don't use it as an articulator in English.